obviously at the moment they're all furloughed, but looking at how we start back up the cleaning social enterprise. I mean, it's for some industries like ourselves, it will be a good opportunity to try and utilise if we can. So that's where I'm at, really.
Thank you. That's great. Beth, do you want to just quickly?
Hi everyone, I'm Beth. I'm Isha's co-founder at Supply Change. So yeah, you know what we do, but it's nice to be here and learn more about your businesses.
Thank you. And just in response to Tevfik's comment, yeah, if you are happy to share if everyone is happy, we can send around an email afterwards copying everyone in with the recording as well. But if you want to put your email there too. Richard, next to you.
Hi there, Richard Good is my name. My colleague Tara has just joined us, so we're getting double value out of this session. So we work for the Turnaround Project, which is based in Belfast. We provide transitional employment for people for up to 6 months before they complete their sentences in the justice system, and for about 6 months afterwards, as well as a strengths-based coaching support system. And our ambition is to develop wider social groups with people in the community who haven't been through the justice system and people who have, to support each other on their journeys. We run 2 social enterprises. One is a very small bike refurb business, and the other is a grounds maintenance enterprise called Outwork. So it's Outwork that brings us here this morning. We're just keen to learn. We've been running for about 18 months, keen to learn from other organizations about what they do and how they go about it, and particularly on the operational side, where we want to borrow ideas and experiences from more established organizations. Thanks.
Thank you, Richard. And Carrie next.
Hi, I'm Carrie. I'm the Managing Director of Urban Growth, who create green spaces in and around London. We work with some large housing providers and corporate clients through to community groups around edible living programs to empower communities to grow their own food. So I'll be like leading the discussion today, but really I'm not an expert, so I'm going to be learning loads from you guys as well. So already I'm hearing some interesting links between working with ex-offenders and young people, so that's really interesting because that's a passion project of mine. So yeah, looking forward to hearing from everyone.
Thank you. Tara.
Hello. Well, Richard's just explained the project, so I work with Richard at the Turnaround Project, but it's nice to meet you all.
Thank you. Last but not least, Matt.
Hi, yeah, sorry I was late, a few technical issues getting in, but yeah, my name's Matt and I run Radiant Cleaners, a social enterprise cleaning business based in Nottingham. We employ people who are been a long way from the job market, which includes people who've been homeless, ex-offenders, victims of abuse, mental health, etc., etc. And yeah, so a cleaning business in Nottingham. We were part of the UnLtd Thrive program, the first one I think, but 2018 anyway. That's us.
Great, thanks, Matt. So I think I'm going to hand over now to Carrie to kind of start an open discussion.
Yeah, hello. So to give you a bit more background, I actually only joined Urban Growth Managing Director about a week before lockdown. So what a great time to take over running a company. And to be honest, it's been a roller coaster. There's lots of ups and there's lots of downs. And I think in this situation, it's really easy to focus on the negatives and the downs all the time because, well, there's a lot of downs, isn't there? But what I was most impressed about with my team in particular was their creativity and resilience when this happened. They really stepped up, and we all agreed we wanted to continue our mission of connecting people to nature. So we innovated a lot to bring things online and to reach vulnerable members of our community in new and different ways. So it's been good and bad. And so what I'd love to start off with is to hear how other people have also innovated or adapted to the current situation. I don't want to pick on people. So if anybody just wants to raise their hands or unmute themselves, then do go ahead and talk. We're a small group, so it should be fine just to go ahead and have a good old chat. So yeah, let's hear how you've innovated, some positive things that have come out of this.
Shall I start? We're a cleaning social enterprise. So what we've actually been able to do is to kind of, because you're so busy in delivering the work, you don't concentrate on the actual enterprise, on the kind of mechanics of running it. So it's given us time to reflect and look at what we've got in place and how we can better have those systems and procedures in place. But also we've managed to get some of our cleaners trained up on the cross-contamination and infection control training, so that we can then offer a new service like back to work cleaning service. So that's one of the positives I can think of. And we've had luckily a cleaning firm locally donated some cleaning disinfectant material to us, which was really very kind of them. So that's another positive.
Oh, that's excellent. That's really, I think there's been so many acts of kindness in around this as well. We had an art gallery. They're doing an online exhibition, so that's how they've innovated, and they've chosen us as one of their charities. So should they sell any, we'll get a bit of the donation. And just thought that never happened before. So I think it's really brought people together as well. Has anyone else changed or adapted or innovated their services during this time?
Yeah, I'd like to add something to that. So, as I mentioned, Blue Sky Services is part of Forward Trust, which is quite a huge organisation working in prison estates across the UK, specifically in substance recovery support. Right at the very beginning of COVID, and I too, Kerry, only joined the organisation 2 weeks before lockdown, so I feel your pain. Yeah, so right when the lockdown was announced and COVID was spreading like wildfire as such, we at Blue Sky in particular wanted to well, we were concerned that if there was sufficient work to justify the continued employment of our 10 odd staff, but also obviously very aware of the possibility of contracting the virus. We spent quite a lot of time analysing the situation. In the first week, we had 4 operatives off on self-isolation. Second week, that became 5, so things became a bit challenging. But what we were able to do, and I'm quite proud of this, is that we maintained operations throughout the whole lockdown. Our general manager, Stephen, was quite reactive. He immediately started working on some risk assessments which incorporated social distancing, which is now the norm, but for us back then it was kind of quite innovational, I would say. Certain, like obviously minimising the amount of people in the office, site office, to 2, only placing 2 operatives in a vehicle at any one time, and obviously social distancing, which wasn't that challenging on site. So that was really to our credit, I think, and to Steve's credit, that he managed to kind of react to the situation very quickly to keep us operational. And in addition, not so much innovational, but we explored the possibility of providing some voluntary services, helping out the local authorities with the vehicles that we had. For a lot of legal reasons, we weren't able to do it under the banner of the Forward Trust or Blue Sky, but a lot of my team were able to kind of put themselves out on the weekends and in the evenings to provide some food delivery to the elderly and whatnot in the South Buckinghamshire area. So yeah, pretty proud of my team and how we managed to remain operational. At times very challenging with a lack of staff, but still nevertheless. And most importantly, to keep our commissioners happy, because as you know, if you lose a customer to a competitor, then it's quite difficult to get them back. So all sorts of things in our minds, but we remained operational, which is the most important thing. Thank you.
Yeah, sometimes survival, that's an achievement in itself, isn't it? Has anyone else got anything to add? Yeah, Marie-Claire.
Yeah, I don't know whether it's innovative. It was just kind of a needs must, really. We were due to start delivering the departure lounge contract at HMP Birmingham on the 1st of April. The prisons went into total lockdown on the 24th of March and are still in lockdown, so nobody going in other than prison officers, which obviously meant that we couldn't deliver the service. So what we did instead was just information gathering, because people are still being released from prison. They just haven't got the support services there that they would usually have, and even then it was thin on the ground. So just kind of giving everybody an information pack on leaving that's got everything in there, including information about COVID-19 and what they can expect coming through the gate, because the world's very different to when they went in. So just kind of trying to soften the blow, give a lot of information. And then I think we built on that as well. Through experience, we know that prisoners often lose stuff. So one of the guys who was really engaged with us whilst in custody, he had all our contact details and planned to get in touch on release, but he lost the card. So one of the things that we've also developed is sharing that information with families, so that, you know, it's just that kind of wraparound information sharing, and it's pretty minimal, but it was just a tiny little solution. Yeah, tiny little solution.
I like it. Small wins, isn't it? And I think I hadn't even considered that point of view of prisoners coming out and not having that kind of support or network. I think there's just so many things, isn't there, that just, yeah, I hadn't even considered it. So it's amazing that you were able to still provide it. Has anyone out of interest moved anything online? Has anyone done anything around that? Online training or workshop, or moving their services online? I think Tev, did you nod? Yeah, go for it. You're on mute, my love. Oh, it's still going. Yeah. This happens at like every meeting, doesn't it? There you go.
Here we go. Sorry, so let me start again. So I don't want to turn this into a promotional feature about the Forward Trust, but as I mentioned at the outset, I also manage the Forward Enterprise Fund. So it's great to meet Marie, because I've heard so much about her in the past. And I've forgotten the question now.
The question was about moving services online. Has anyone?
Yes, of course it was.
Yeah.
So, obviously we've all been kind of forced into a situation where we're now embracing technology, as we are this morning. So what we decided to do as part of the Forward Enterprise Fund, we were planning some kind of events where people from industry could come and provide some information to our caseload of entrepreneurs. We realised that wasn't going to happen anytime soon, so we kind of started to think about how we could deliver a virtual event. So tapping up a few contacts and making some new friends in my new post, we eventually, for the first time in Forward Trust's history, and I don't want to sound like too cheesy, but we've got our first virtual event, which is all about the journey of a successful entrepreneur. That's taking place on the 25th of June. I'm over the moon about the amount of tickets that we've sold. They are free, so let's get it into perspective. But I think at last count we were 70 plus, and we were only ever counting for 30. So yeah, we've got that coming up on the 25th of June, and that's now been the kind of the driving force behind some of our other projects now moving towards delivering events online. And in addition, our employment services projects have also now moved their learning and their coaching online as well. So I think it's something that we've all had to not necessarily, enjoy at first instance, but now understanding the benefits of it and doing it. And I'm sure that I'm not alone. We're not alone in that. So that's the stuff that we've been doing online.
Yeah, I think that sounds amazing that you got so many people attending your event. And I think that just goes to show there's such demand for online content because people are at home, they're not being able to go out as much. I know from my perspective, in terms of like CPD for my staff, I'm like, this is great. I don't have to pay for travel or out of work hours or whatever. They can do it at the comfort of their own home. So I've like been able to actually provide a CPD budget, which I don't think they've ever had before. So I definitely think if there is a service that you can provide online, that's the way forward. Because so luckily, my background before joining Urban Growth was running a large education and training program. And in the last 3 years that I was there, we developed an online platform for teachers. So I wouldn't say I'm like I know everything about online learning, because I really don't. I was quite basic, but still I had some experience in it. So we moved a lot online in terms of our workshops. And we actually concentrated on our existing clients. So we were able to actually generate about £7,000 in income through our online programs. And I think, you know, while that's not a huge amount, it's still a significant sum to keep us ticking over. I mean, we're now getting to the stage where we want to start doing more public programs, a bit like what Tev was saying, and doing it free, but on a donation basis, because that's the other thing, is that you're asking people for money during a very difficult time. So we thought having a donation and have like an advised donation of however many tickets is a good way forward. And we actually ran that, and we did get donations because we weren't expecting any. Again, we didn't make much, it was like 30 quid, but it helps, doesn't it? Every little helps. And I think a lot of the approach we're taking with running things online isn't so much about generating income, but more around a way of generating leads and having long-term relationships with people, and you know, PR essentially, of getting the message out there, our brand out there, our values and our mission. And the more people who know about us, the more we're going to have. We call them green believers. We're going to believe in green spaces and green recovery as well in the post-COVID world. So it's kind of, although it might take up our time, may not generate lots of money, there's more value to it, which I think leads us very nicely on to my next question: money, finances. So we've done the wins. Shall we now look at some of the more challenging, pressing matters? Is how have people gone about you know, dealing with the financial fallout of the pandemic? And yeah, it'd be great. I'm going to leave that question wide open. So has anybody got anything they would like to add? I think Mary Claire, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, nothing too out there really. So we had another project which was due to start on the 1st of April, which was funded by Barrow Cadbury, to deliver the country's first ever visitors council, again at HMP Birmingham. We couldn't deliver on that, so we asked for a variation notice on the grant funding that had already been sent across. And I found everyone's really supportive, even the MOJ, which is unusual. They've kind of honoured the invoice payments that were due. I'm saying they've honoured it. We haven't got the money in the bank yet, so I shouldn't jinx it. But yeah, I think the general vibe that I felt, and I don't know if it's the same for everyone, is that everybody's been quite supportive. They want to see you. They want to see us here at the end of, well, hopefully at the end of COVID-19. So yeah, we've had payments honoured and invoices honoured. We've been really lucky, and I think we're gonna be okay. Touch wood.
Great, that's really good. That's great that the MOJ. I actually worked at the MOJ in youth offending. It was the worst year of my life, so I'm glad to hear they were supportive. Anybody else that have anything want to add about Richard? I think your hand is up there.
Yeah, well, like Marie Claire, we've been fortunate in that funders have been very flexible with us. So this is more Tara's area than mine. So Tara, chip in. But yeah, any funder we have asked to vary their funding criteria have agreed to do so. We've also most of our grounds maintenance work is for one client, housing association, and they've been very good. They're obviously very nervous about having staff on their sites, so we went into full furlough mode almost from day one. But they we worked with them on a kind of open book accounting arrangement, and they agreed to basically allow us to invoice them for days that we would work in the future to try and help us through cash flow. Now, as it happened, because of our funding support, we didn't need to avail of that, and we haven't as yet, and I don't think we'll need to. So yeah, supportive clients, supportive funders, and I'm not just saying this because Tara's here, but great staff. So one of our staff offered to take unpaid leave. The furlough scheme made that unnecessary. Another member of staff has reduced the number of days they're working. So we've been really fortunate on all of those fronts. we're back now starting to ramp up operations. So our supervisors came back from furlough to work on a kind of one man in a van basis initially. And then as of yesterday, we started to bring back our temporary staff. And those are the people who work with us for up to 12 months. So we had 2 more people back yesterday, and hopefully within the next 2 weeks, we'll bring more back. So we're gradually coming out the other end of it in terms of cash flow.
Brilliant. I love that saying, turnover is for vanity, profit sanity, cash flow is reality. And I think, if anything, this pandemic has shown us how cash flow is more important than anything. The rest is just numbers on paper, isn't it? Has anyone else got anything to add around finances? Matt, go for it.
Yeah, we've been very well supported as well. It's been encouraging to see like commercial customers who've still backed us during this time. So people that really sort of get the vision, not all of them by any means. And we certainly had people dropping off as they were shutting their offices or their buildings back in March. But people have started to come back, which has been positive. Probably slower than I would have expected, but and most of the offices that we clean for, basically anyone that can stay shut has stayed shut in Nottingham. So anyone who needs to get earning and doing manufacturing have gone back, but any offices that can work from home are still doing so. So that's a bit difficult, but in some ways, some of our customers have paid us a reduced amount, and so we're actually doing all right because they're probably, because we're not paying staff for working there. Everyone's on furlough, or everyone was on furlough. So that's been okay. It's not, the furlough scheme, obviously, as a lot of you will know, is not very straightforward. When the difficulty we have is some jobs have come back and others haven't. So therefore, trying to deal with that with employees, like if half their hours have come back and half haven't, what do you do? And who do you get to do that job? And so those kind of complications. But overall, we've managed to and through donations from customers, we've managed to top up everyone's earnings to their full earnings from the 80%. So that's been great to be able to support the team. It then brings other issues in terms of getting people back to work, but in terms of money, it's been all right so far.
That's really, really interesting, because our model, we're not reliant on funding at all. So I'm really pleased to hear that your funding partners have been flexible and supportive with it. So we've got like kind of 2 income streams, in the sense of we've got corporate clients, so like our private clients, and then we've got councils essentially. And I have to say the councils have been fantastic, like to the point that one of our people that we've got good relationships with, he even recognised that we were struggling, and he was the one that put so much money towards the online platform, as well as, you know, paying on time. It's always nice, isn't it? Although they are slow, they are like dinosaurs, they do tend to pay within 30 days. One of the things that we did, and I don't know whether anybody else has got this, is that, so when I joined, there was no kind of real finance or invoice system even. The managing director would send invoices out if and when she could. So cash flow was a real thing. So within my first week, I was like, I ain't doing that. I really am not, especially now, like we need to be chasing to get that money in, because we had a lot of outstanding debtors, which actually turned out to save us a lot. That fact that there was no system actually helped us a lot now. So anyway, in the first week, I hired a finance manager who works remotely. He's based in Lisbon, and honestly, he's the best decision I ever made, because he really improved the financial health of our company within weeks. And with that, so with him chasing and getting the invoices out in time, we were able to bring in like 30-40 grand in a month, which I think in these current circumstances is a small miracle, which helped our cash flow massively. How much does he cost? Excellent question. He is €250 a month, which is just like, I just think it's great, because he's based in Lisbon, does Portugal things. He's Swedish, but knows the English system very well, because he worked over here in the banks. So if you want his details, he was like, I'm more than happy to do work elsewhere, because he's doing it remote and freelance. So I'm more than happy to share, because I know he'll be up for it. And honestly, he's fantastic. He really brought structure into a chaotic system very quickly and under a lot of pressure. So I'd highly recommend him. The other thing is we cut a lot. So I'm not sure if anybody has office space and things like that. So we stopped paying, and the office, again, it was sort of run by a charitable organisation. So they were able to not, to not mind that, and actually offered for us to stop paying. So what essentially I stripped back so much that our only outgoings was staff, because that was our priority, was to try and keep staff. And like you, so we've got 8 members of staff. We put half on furlough, and the other half was just to keep it operational. But unfortunately, we did have to make redundancies. Has anyone else had to go through that process yet? No, oh, you're lucky. It would be fine. It'll be fine. But yeah, unfortunately, we did have to make that decision, because this is going to lead on to my next question, is that, all right, cash flow is okay now, but that's because historically we're still getting money in from past jobs. But in terms of getting new projects and new clients, and looking to the future, I wonder how people are going about that. So I find Corona for businesses is going to be like in 3 stages. It's react, which is where we are now. Then we've got recovery, which is hopefully where we'll be in the next 6 months. And then we've got rebuild. And I'd be really interested to see how people are thinking about the future, planning for new contracts and going about that. So yeah, let's see how people are thinking.
Yep, if I may add, sorry, go on, India, if you want.
No, you go first.
Right. Okay, so part of my brief upon joining Forward Trust was to increase the turnover of Blue Sky as a social enterprise, to grow essentially, so that we can offer more employment opportunities and training opportunities for the cohorts that we deal with. So I've gone on a kind of after a 2-week induction period, as I said, in London, and then it was work from home for the rest of the time. I went through a scourge of sending emails out to old contacts, trying to reignite relationships, housing associations, etc., etc., etc. And whether it's because, I've hit a big blank on that at the moment. Thankfully, our existing commissioner, which is based at London Borough of Hillingdon, have kept us going. But I've hit a huge blank insofar as trying to generate any new business, whether it's because a lot of people are on furlough, because I have had a lot of emails returned saying we're not in the business at the moment, or whether it's because obviously there's a lack of confidence, so people don't want to commit. It's been understandably, I'm not sitting here moaning, but it's been a really challenging time for me over the last 3 months to try and get any new business in. I just hope that our directors are quite sympathetic when it comes to reviewing my targets in 6 months' time or what have you. But yeah, that's the situation for us at the moment. We're really eager to grow. We've got the infrastructure to grow. We've got, we're able to and happy to recruit, not only in our own kind of site in Denham, but also to areas further across the field. But it's just getting that commitment from would-be clients, commissioners, local authorities at this stage, which is quite challenging. I'm not sure if everyone else feels the same or what their experience is of that.
I think we're similar in that we've got our existing clients who I've made contact with, and some of them aren't opening yet, or not sure when they're opening. So looking at our new customers, and we had to really look at where we position ourselves as a cleaning company, because we're not specialists in fogging and all of that sanitization, but we do deep cleans, we do the commercial cleans and the domestic cleans. So it's about positioning ourselves and having a service offer that's going to build that confidence with new customers, in that people are now thinking about going back to opening up offices, premises. It's in how do we get those new customers. So that's kind of where we're at, and looking at how we do that, really. That's where we're at. So looking at what the cleaning sector is, we've kind of become members of the British Institute of Cleaning, because that helps us to improve our services. But it's how do we get new business? That's where we're at, and also keep our existing clients who, touch wood, have kind of stayed with us through all of this, but some of them are starting up, some aren't. So it's like what Matt was saying earlier, is there's a few hours, not the hours that they're their regular hours, and it's looking at how we furlough them out and then furlough them back in if we need to. So yeah, kind of unknown times, but trying to plan in those unknown times as well, and we can do that. It's something where we're at.
Yeah, it's a good question. So has anyone any thoughts on getting new contracts and looking for new businesses? Marie Claire, yeah, go for it.
Okay, just hang on a sec. So in terms of new contracts, I haven't really thought about that yet. But one of the things, so we got a loan we were one of the lucky ones to receive a loan from the Forward Enterprise Fund for our employment kind of recruitment specialist. So we were meant to start paying that back in October. Obviously the market's completely changed, as we mentioned earlier. Saturation is going to mean that that's a lot more difficult. So one of the things that we've looked at diversifying is that role. I don't know if anyone's heard of the independent placement support model. It's big in like mental health circles, and it's very much evidence based in terms of rather than the blanket recruitment, which was what we were going for. We were going for volume, warehousing, construction, wherever. That's kind of looking a little bit unstable at the moment, or unattainable. It's just there, darling. Sorry about this. I'm trying to multitask. So yeah, the IPS model is more about that person, like what do you want to do, and then really working with that individual to get them in front of an employer. So that's just one of the things that we've looked at, and the PCC actually weirdly put out a tender for that. So we're just waiting to hear back, and hopefully that'll be 200k over 2 years to deliver an IPS model, but also.
Amazing, that sounds really good. So before this happened, Urban Growth was in a very wonderful and lucky position that they never had to go out and look for work. It always came to them, to the point where they actually had to turn down work. So it's been a real shift in mindset to get people, because I'm basically like, we need to attack. We need to be out there and being quite aggressive around it. And I know that sounds like, I'm not sure I like the word aggression, but it's like we need to be really, really proactive in getting out there and working. So it's interesting you mentioned about tenders and stuff, because we never really had to do that before. And I'm now like, no, we need to go out there on those platforms, find out work that's there, and start bidding for it, and being competitive around our proposals and our costings and so on. So I think that's going to be an interesting sort of shift and challenge for the team. Actually, it's like, how do we go about looking for new work, and also identifying audiences, like you say, like the market's unstable in certain industries now, so it's also identifying audiences that perhaps are a little bit more stable. And so we're thinking, well, who's got sort of set funding, who's not going to be affected by this? And that's like schools, hospitals, councils. Right now they're not. I imagine they'll probably have cuts further down the line, because Tories have got to pay for this somehow. So yeah, the local authorities, yeah, procurement, all of that is sort of like that. We're sort of identifying that as an audience or a need that we could be aiming and sort of planning attack. The other aspect of it, planning for the future, I don't know, I mean, a lot of your work is social based anyway, but one of the things that came to us about green spaces and maintenance is that the inequalities that the coronavirus pandemic has exposed in us, it's always been there, but it's really exposed it. And so we're sort of we're calling it Build Back Better, which is based on the Transition Towns like economic environmental response to this, and one of the things is like looking at marginalized and deprived areas to put green spaces in them. So it's like, so we've kind of been sort of working backwards, actually. It's like, who's our audience, who's our market, and then what is it that we want to do, and our values as an organization. And so we're trying to get a plan of attack, basically, to go out there and start fighting for work. So yeah, that's my 2 pennies worth. How are we doing for time? Because I'm conscious It's 1:45.
We have about another 10 minutes of open discussion, and then we can just close it down and speak about if we want to stay in touch and how that might happen.
Okay, cool. I think actually it'd be quite nice, or not nice, but it would be a good question to end in. Is actually a practical question around, we've mentioned risk assessments and health and safety, and I wondered actually how different organisations have gone about ensuring the safety of their staff and the community and the people that they're working for and with. I think it'd be really good to share actually like practical examples of what people have done. I think that would be a really good way of helping each other. So has anybody got anything to add about guidelines that they've done or initiated within their workplaces or sites?
So we've had to get PPE equipment for our cleaners, which has been a bit of a nightmare, but we've managed to get what we need, and at the level I think we need it at. And then it's looking at, okay, so how to try to get them all having their own, like a little trolley with all their cleaning stuff and everything, so they have everything that's theirs, which has been sterilised and clean, so that they can not rely on anyone else, that's their own. So that's something that I can think practically that we've done. Yeah, that's all I can think of.
Tev, I think you've got your hand up there.
Yeah. So apart from obviously all the obvious factors, PPE, which we did have to pay over the odds for at the outset, and it is what it is. And obviously some of the bits and pieces I mentioned earlier in relation to limiting the amount of people in the vehicle at any one time, etc. Another concern for us was our team having to get to our site, which is quite remote in Denham Park. So we kind of all clubbed in. I don't live in the area, so I wasn't involved in this piece of work, but we arranged for like colleagues to pick each other up from certain points on their journey to drive them in, and as always keeping as best as possible, you know, the windows open, gel wipes and all that in the vehicles, in the personal vehicles as well as the work-related vehicles, the vans. And it was just like a big clubbing together to keep the operation going, to keep our customers happy, to keep our bosses happy, and it was really, really refreshing to see how everybody did club in. I'm grateful that nobody from Blue Sky ever got contracted the virus in any event. And as I said, touch wood. And also, at the first few weeks were very challenging, but it all kind of seemed to have settled down within about 3 or 4 weeks. But yeah, it's just all about just clubbing in and having, as I said, reactive people on the ground saying, okay, if we need to continue, we need to do this. You do an analysis, and if it's worth it, it's worth it, and then you just keep moving on. And that's pretty much how we dealt with it. I wouldn't say it's innovational, but it's just being reactive and as I said, you know, sometimes you have to make those difficult decisions where you're going to have to pay £10 a bottle for gel, but if it means that you can get 10 bottles in for 100 quid and keep the operation going, then it's money well spent. So yeah, that's the kind of things that we did.
Yeah, I feel your pain. We spent a lot on PPE as well, but like you say, it is what it is. But then we obviously, as an environmental kind of company, we were very conscious of the waste that this was going to be producing, especially the masks that are thrown away. And it was a real, honestly, I found, or the team, all of us found the health and safety aspects around this a real headache between the conflict of what we wanted to do, but obviously needs must, and so obviously we got
absolutely,
we're all protected, yeah. But it was a consideration we were thinking of, and risk assessments were tricky as well, because I don't know how everyone else. So like you, touch wood, we've been very lucky. None of our team members have become ill, but one of our team members is I would class as vulnerable. He's BAME community, slightly older, pre-diabetic. He's desperate to come back to work, which is amazing. But it's also like we also host volunteers and workshops, and he's normally the person doing them. And it's like, how do we make sure he's safe? It's such a balancing act. And in the end, we move things around. We do solo maintenance, like you say, like working alone as much as possible. PPE, disinfecting tools, sharing equipment, all of that. There was a lot of thought. We've got a van as well, and it's like disinfecting the fan every time you use it. There's so many things to be thinking about that. So I'm more than happy to share my guidelines that we created as a team with you guys after this. Same with like an example risk assessment from one of our sites that included the COVID measures, because to be honest, we were flying blind and we kind of just added it. I'm not saying that that's what you should be using, because like I say, we're all sort of blind leading the blind here, but if people are happy to share that, I do think that would be a really, really helpful resource amongst us to have. Yeah, is there, oh, I thought I saw some hands going up. Do I see Richard? Yeah, Richard, and then...
Yeah, well, likewise, Tara has developed our health and safety policy and procedures around this, and I'm happy that we share that with people afterwards. And the way it's designed, you can see how we've kind of tracked the decision making as we've gone through this, which not only helps us guide our way through it, but will be a good record if we ever find ourselves back in another pandemic scenario. I guess the only thing I would add in terms of our approach, and we've done all the things that people have talked about already. We work in crews, so we've crew cab vans. We've put screens in between the front and the back of the cabs to separate people and so on. Two things I would add are making sure we've gone at the pace that our supervisors have been comfortable with. So, not forcing people to come back when they're not comfortable, or forcing people to have additional members of the crew when they're not comfortable. And actually that has worked well for us, I think, so far. Tara's nodding, so yeah. And secondly, yeah, we're kind of working closely with clients. So again, in the case of our housing association, kind of being led by them in terms of what they were comfortable with, and we've actually found ourselves now kind of running to catch up with them. Having flipped from being very, very cautious about having people on site to now being very, very keen that we return en masse to get the job done and get sites back under control. So yeah, just good communication with your own team and with clients has made a big difference for us, I think.
Brilliant, thank you. I've actually just seen a really good question, and I'm going to just quickly ask it. Are people planning for a second peak re-COVID? Excellent question. Yeah, go for it, Mocha.
Yeah, the reason I asked that is because we are. I mean, history tells us that pandemics do second peak always, and I think. I think we'd be naive not to plan for that. I think we're already seeing the R number creep up in terms of, the congregations that are going on, obviously with the protests, which I completely agree with. But I'd imagine that that's going to have an impact in a week or two, maybe more. So yeah, we're planning for a second peak. We are, and I don't mean to sound negative, but I think a lot of the so we've got a couple of members on our board who run like large organisations, national charities and national orgs, and they're advising us to plan for a second peak.
Yeah, we are. We are too. We've actually, like, how I find it really interesting how everyone's kind of just sprung back into trying to go back as business as normal, whereas we've been really, really cautious. And I've had people say, like, why aren't you doing workshops or training again? And we've had our clients actually going, like, we want to open this space up, and it's like, we can't maintain social distancing, like this, it's not safe to do so. But also because we're thinking a second peak's coming in a week or two, we'd rather go slowly rather than sort of reopen and then having to shut down again.
So can I just ask everybody, in terms of the second peak, or even just what's going on at the moment, and clients and employees, are you asking people to sort of sign disclaimers? Obviously you've got your policies and procedures and think our due diligence that we're following, but are you asking people that want to be involved, such as housing associations or even service users, to kind of like sign to say that any risk is something that they take on or not?
Yeah, go for it, Tev.
Yeah, we don't have any contact with like, members of the public, so that's one positive, or shall I say, it's easier to kind of administer. But what we have done is asked all of our operatives to sign the risk assessment to confirm that they've been read it and they understand it and they've been given a copy. That leads me to another point that, you know, unfortunately, grounds maintenance provision is very different to all the other types of employment support and funds that Forward Trust run. So we decided that it'd be best, rather than just send emails out of the risk assessment, would be to have a 10-minute meeting going through each person's risk assessment personally and get them to sign it, so that at least we could do the best that we could to ensure that they understood and read it. However, I did have the pleasure of visiting our site yesterday, and this isn't, I mean, I had to kind of remind people, me included, that social distancing measures are still in place. It is quite awkward when you meet somebody you haven't met for a little while and the instant reaction is to go and shake their hand or give them a hug or whatever. And it becomes quite awkward, but it's just, I think it's a constant thing that, because we're all human, we all do forget from time to time. And I think it's just got to be at the forefront of everyone's mind that social distancing rules apply and they must continue to apply until we hear otherwise. But there is that kind of, oh, it's over now, let me get into normal mode again kind of scenario going on a little bit, which I think managers and ourselves as like managers and our supervisors have to be mindful of at all times. But yeah, just wanted to share that.
Yeah, I agree. It's a really human reaction, the way everyone is behaving at the moment. But it is hard. We've got so when we're on sites, we haven't yet done this, but we've got a plan when we start installing green installations of having like a designated person, like a police, to be like, stay 2 meters apart, like, because otherwise it's just so hard to do all the time. So we have actually assigned somebody who's going to be like the officer, the patrol person, to keep it in place and keep people in check. So yeah, okay, great. I think that's everything.
Yeah, I think we are running, we've got a couple of minutes left, so thank you so much, Carrie, for excellently facilitating that session. I think it's quite clear how easy that flowed, and everyone has a lot of learnings to share, so it was really good to hear everything. I just put out a few things that I kind of heard, some of the main bits. I think everyone agreed that online is inevitable and that we've all had to embrace going online, and especially that's interesting around the training elements and actually having budget to do things like that now because of the travel costs, etc. So that's really interesting. Content is really key, and I know someone mentioned social media in the chat, but I know with all the ventures that I work with at UnLtd, the main thing at the moment that a lot of people can do, and sometimes the only thing people can do at the moment, is keeping customers engaged, and that's through online content and digital content. So social media strategy, digital strategy is something that maybe you've never really prioritized, but maybe something that a lot of people are doing at the moment. So hopefully, I know there's quite a few pro bono things out there, but they're quite overwhelmed with requests. But hopefully you can share. I know someone mentioned, I think you mentioned someone that might be able to help with social media strategy. It's good to hear that funders are being flexible, and that some customers are also. And it sounds like everyone's made best use of the furlough scheme. I suppose everyone's in the same case with going forward with new clients, and seeing how that might happen. But it's an interesting point about tenders and registering to see how they come out. So those were kind of the main things that I had there. And obviously there's things around PPE that everyone's experiencing. I think now, I mean, what we'll do after this is either Supply Chain or UnLtd will email and copy you all in if you're all happy, unless you don't want your email to be shared, but I think everyone did put their email there, as a way to just share information and connect. There was quite a few resources that people put in this chat that they're happy to share, I think around risk assessment and things like that. But yeah, that's just, thank you very much for joining. It was a really interesting conversation, and I haven't worked out quite how to share these Zoom calls yet because they're too big to send via email. So I might end up putting this on our UnLtd YouTube channel, and that might be the only way we can share this sort of chat. but we will let you know afterwards. Unless you guys at Supply Chain have anything to add, I will kind of stop the recording and close the conversation for now.
Nothing to add from Supply Chain, but just to say thanks so much to everyone for joining, and Carrie especially for facilitating that conversation.
Thank you.
And it's really great to see you all and know that you're all very well, and hope to speak to you all very soon. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.